We are back for another episode here of the Climate Tech Inc. NFL Prediction Show. Cole McDaniel, Vince McKee, as always. And before we dive into the picks for this week, Vince, I'll let you talk about our sponsor.
Oh yeah, Climate Tech Inc. has been with us all 6 years of this show. I absolutely love them because at Climate Tech Inc., they're going to provide you with top quality heating and air conditioning services, ventilation services. They pretty much do it all because they want you to be comfortable. Find out more about them today at climate-tech.com.
So, Vince, last week, rough week for both of us pick-wise. We were just actually talking about this off air before we got the show started that we have not had a week this bad in the entirety of this show. And I would assume that for most people who did any sort of picks or anything along those lines, last week there's a good chance that the people who maybe typically really struggle with picks might have had a good week for the first time in a long time. And the people who seem to typically at least get the majority of the picks right, or at least are on the positive side of 500 each week. It was probably not your best week, if not one of your worst weeks ever, because there were so many upsets, upset after upset after upset, really running down the list. So it's going to be a matter of this week, will week six look like week five? Think that's probably going to be pretty difficult for that to be repeated in the NFL.
Yeah, you would think so. But at the same time, I mean, there are countless games there where you still don't know what you have. For example, let's give you this. Dallas lost their best player in CeeDee Lamb, and they put up 40 plus points ever since every game, right? Hard to fathom what's going on there. Baltimore starts off the season 1-4. Didn't see that coming. Our new favorite team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, started off 4-1. Sure as heck didn't see that coming. Just all kinds of weird things going on right now in the NFL. Colts 4-1, San Francisco 4-1. So there's different things neither you and I could have predicted in a million years. And speaking of that, I mean, we're going to talk about Sunday Night Football here in a bit, so I don't want to jump the gun, too much here. But when we get to the Kansas City Chiefs, real strong possibility they start the season 2-4. So some real goofy things going on right now. I'm just happy about my Broncos. Yes, I said it again. My Broncos 3-2, and honestly, man, they're a couple plays away from being 5-0 this season. I mean, just a wild start for them. So, yep, let's shake off last week. Let's get to this week and have some fun.
So as we start with Thursday night football, I will say this. One upset that happened, well, and actually technically, I think the line was actually that at home the New Orleans Saints were the favorite. So I think you and I both took the New York Giants, who were the actually the underdog,
Yep,
but
we did.
realistically going into that game, they really shouldn't have been the underdog in my opinion. I think the New Orleans Saints going into the year on paper, and then so far to start the season, they've looked like the worst team in the NFL. I fully anticipate and anticipated that New Orleans Saints team to only maybe scrounge up 2 wins, maybe 3 wins this season, get the number one overall pick, actually get a quarterback. Credit to Spencer Rattler. He had a good game last week against the Giants. But I'll tell you what, we already knew the Giants were a bad football team,
Terrible.
but the Saints should have been the worst football team. And the Giants just did not show up, and the Saints, they
Lousy.
got the better of them. And now the New York Giants have to go up against the Philadelphia Eagles, who they just took their first loss of the season to the Denver
Mm-hmm.
Broncos, a close ball game that, I mean, the Eagles could have still easily won. The Denver Broncos, they went on the road, they won that game. But this Eagles team, it's hard to imagine. This is such a Super Bowl caliber roster where they just won the Super Bowl. They have the talent realistically to go back to back. Going
Mm-hmm.
back to back is very difficult. But that Eagles team, they're going to be contenders. They're going to be in the hunt. They're going to be in the mix again this year. It's hard to imagine that they're going to lose back to back games this season, especially back-to-back games then when the second of the two is the New York Giants, a team that they may actually be worse than I even expected. I knew they were going to have a bad record. I knew that they weren't going to have a good season. Um, but they're lacking any firepower. They're lacking any juice. I mean, the biggest conversation for them might be Cam Scadaboo and his mentality and how hard-nosed and tough he is. Not only just he gives it so much effort as a runner, um, blocking out of the backfield, but aside from that, their offense right now is just it's dull, it's boring, and I don't think they get anything going against the Eagles, Vince. I have 9 points for them on Thursday Night Football. I think the Eagles blow them out 35-9. I don't think it's going to be close. I think it's going to probably be one of the most unwatchable Thursday night games all season. We always get some of those, but I think this is probably going to be one of the ones where if anybody puts a pin on what were the three most unwatchable Thursday night games this season, I think there's a good chance this ends up being one of them.
So I'm going to give you three quick sentences, which is definitely going to tell you who I'm picking. Philadelphia is pissed. They don't want to lose two in a row, let alone to a terrible team. The Giants are one of the worst teams in the NFL, if not the worst, after last weekend. They're one of the worst teams in sports. And three, Brian Dable is a terrible head coach. The fact that the Giants made the playoffs 3 years ago to me is still stunning. That's why he's still there. Don't kid yourself. He's there because they made the playoffs with some fluke a couple of years ago. And then I want to say either beat Minnesota or lost to Minnesota in the playoffs that year. I think they actually beat Minnesota, but regardless, the Giants are not a good football team. When you trade away Saquon Barkley, you've done nothing to improve yourself. And then you draft Jackson Dart. That's the young man's name, right? Jackson Dart. So just craziness there in New York. They get another primetime game because they are in New York. I do agree with Cole. This is going to be almost unwatchable because, again, the Eagles have to be mad. They had that game won, and I'm saying that against a team that I love. I love my Denver Broncos. But Philadelphia outplayed them for like 57 minutes. You know, Denver scored when they had to late. They won the game. They were due a break. They were due a break. So for this one, though, Philadelphia, I think you're going to see them get back on track quickly. As for the Giants, man, oh man. I mean, you just made Spencer Rattler look like a Pro Bowler last week, so I don't know what you're doing. And again, I'll say this one thing and then I'll drop it. The Giants' best player is hurt. He's done for the year. You know, Malik Neighbors, if he was healthy, maybe long term they could have did something there. But when you bench Russell Wilson after week 2, week 3, or whatever the heck it was, and then you know your best receiver is hurt for the year, you're pretty much done.
Yeah, an insult to injury on the loss would be losing to Saquon Barkley once again.
Yeah,
But that's how
well,
it
that's
goes.
funny.
That's how it goes for the New York Giants.
He might go for 300.
Actually, honestly, that wouldn't surprise me. 300 and no touchdowns because of the tush push, always stealing
Yeah,
touchdowns from Saquon Barkley in the red zone. So I'm sure fantasy football players who have him out there, of course,
Emily Lamb.
hate the tush push for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
So going from a terrible game on Thursday Night Football, what really poses to be a terrible game, to what should be a good game on Sunday night. You
Big
got the
game.
Kansas City Chiefs in prime time again, and this is after the Kansas City Chiefs. They fell to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who just have uh, honestly this surge of energy and this new life where they had a pretty good roster, I think, for the last couple years, but um, I think probably about 3 years ago, you and I were both kind of on the train of, hey, Jacksonville might be in a position where they're the team to beat in the AFC South right now. Still, it was a weak division at that time, but it's probably Jacksonville's division with Trevor Lawrence, and it's theirs to lose.
Yep.
And um, then they really never played up to their potential a couple years ago. They really looked like a middle of the pack 500 type of team that would hover around 9-8 or 8-9, and the Houston Texans were the team that had the surge and looked like the better team. And I think you and I had both shifted gears to them the last couple years, as did most people. Now this year, there's not really a ton of like new faces or new players, in my opinion, that are like they're the reason why this organization is changing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it's the new blood and the new energy of their head coach Liam Cohen, and that's exactly what we've talked about here recently. And he's like your favorite coach right now in the NFL. But we need to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. The thing is, Kansas City 2-3 now. This is a team that you have the Baltimore Ravens, they're struggling record wise. The Kansas City Chiefs, they thumped the Ravens the other week, but they're still below 500. They are chasing the Denver Broncos and they're chasing the Los Angeles Chargers right now. And it was a matter of when would the Kings fall in the AFC West. Hey, it's still very early. They still very much so are probably going to be in the hunt. It wouldn't shock me if the Kansas City Chiefs still end up winning that division. However, they've got a tough test with the Detroit Lions, a Detroit Lions team that I still think the Green Bay Packers are probably the team to beat this year in their division, but that Lions team's 100% going to be a playoff football team. They still have plenty of firepower on offense. They have a defense that is healthy this year, unlike last year. It was their Achilles heel that cost them in what was Detroit's really best season in franchise history and looked like it could be their Super Bowl type of season. But the injuries on defense plagued them. Now with a healthy defense, the defense is showing up. Offense still looks good overall. This is a tough test for the Kansas City Chiefs fans. Who are you going with?
It really is a tough test. And here's the thing, they're not performing very well this year in prime time at all. You figure when they're the standalone 4 o'clock game, they've been struggling with the exception of that Baltimore game. But prime time, Friday night football to start the year, right? Lost against the Chargers, granted in a different country, whatever you want to say about that, but still, that's a loss in prime time when you're the standalone game. They just lost again as a standalone game. Now, I'll say this, and we're going to get to Jacksonville in a bit, at least I will here in a little bit. But here's my thought now with Kansas City. They, I think they know how good they could be. They've obviously done it, but they might need a wake up call. And if you're not going to take the Lions seriously, which I'm sure Andy Reid will, Mahomes will, they'll take them seriously. But this is a team that can come in and clean your clock on national TV at home. And let me double check something. I'm pretty sure this game's in KC.
It is.
Yeah, it is. I mean, isn't that crazy to think, right? That this could actually happen in front of their home fans. So, whatever the case may be, for years, and this I'm saying this growing up as a little boy all the way up into my adulthood here, going into Arrowhead Stadium was always a very tough place to win. Kansas City has always been tough, 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 tough to win. But Detroit, I think they could do it. I kind of feel like that era of invincibility that was around Kansas City the last couple of years might be slipping a little. My official pick is Detroit, but I do want to say this about Kansas City, then I'll throw it back to you for a bit. You mentioned about how they're probably still going to, or they should still be able to win the division. You're right. You're right. Chargers 3-2, about as unpredictable as can be through the beginning of this season. I mean, they got upset last week. They were one of the teams that got beat. Eh, Denver, who knows what we're going to get with them? So when you look at this, right? Ideally, 3-2 Chargers, 3-2 Denver. The Raiders are a joke. I talk about the Giants being the worst team in football. The Raiders aren't far behind them, but the Lions right now are just so far ahead of the Chiefs at this early point in the season. That's why I'm picking them. If this was to happen week 14, 15, 16 with the divisions on the line, I'm not real sure which way I would go, but I do feel that the Chiefs will lose this week, but still win the division. So that is my double pick there.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly possible. It's going to be hard for a team to start out 2-4 and then go on to win the division. I think um, in my opinion, I think with how good that Broncos team really is. In coming into the year, I expected that it was Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers. And as much as you love the Broncos, I think you were actually thinking Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos.
That was,
So
yeah.
the thing is, I think that Chargers team, they're a good team. They're going to be in that playoff hunt, but um, their running back woes are probably going to hurt them for a little bit. A lot's going to fall on Justin Herbert's shoulders. He's been very good this season, but it'll be interesting to see if the Chargers don't have much of a ground game because that is not the typical Jim Harbaugh type of team. to have your quarterback stand in the pocket and throw 40 times a game. Justin Herbert is absolutely built for that. He can do that. That's what he did with Brandon Staley. But the thing is, I just think that that could come back to bite the Chargers, just trying to rely on the passing game, not really killing the clock, keeping their defense on the field
Right.
longer. Um,
Mhm.
they're gonna want to do that, you know, 49ers playbook from back in the day with Harbaugh, the prototypical Michigan style of running that rock and getting polars in front and just trying to bleed the clock and wear down the defense. Hey, things for the Chargers, it might be a little bit of tough sledding for them. I think they're still going to get plenty of wins, and realistically, they should this week with the Miami Dolphins. But that being said, I think the Broncos would be a very tough team to catch if you're the Chiefs and you slip to 2-4. So for that reasoning, and for the Kansas City Chiefs being at home this week, yeah, they haven't looked great in prime time. But there's something that tells me in Arrowhead, prime time, backs up against the wall. I feel like Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes are going to be able to find a way to win this game. I think it's going to take everything in their might to win this game against the Detroit Lions. But if I recall correctly, the last time the Detroit Lions were in Kansas City, I believe it was prime time again, season opener a couple seasons ago at Arrowhead, Thursday night football, and the Detroit Lions won that game. I don't know if necessarily the Detroit Lions are going to win at Arrowhead in prime time, back-to-back trips there in a couple year stretch. So give me the Kansas City Chiefs 27 to 24, but it's going to be by the skin of their teeth, I think, to get a win here and improve to 500.
I think you're right. I'm gonna go back and look, but now you mention it, I think you're right. It was a Thursday night game to start the season. I don't remember where it was. If you're saying it's in Kansas, it was in Kansas City, I believe you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sounds right for some reason. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a good Sunday night football game. It's been so back and forth this season, but that one should be pretty damn good.
Yeah, it should. So we go from a bad Thursday night football game to potentially a good Sunday night football game to it is the week of two Monday night football games again. And I know you and I are not a fan of the two Monday night football games. Yeah, I mean, I think to me, I think it's obvious of which one I would prefer to watch. That's going to be the Buffalo Bills and the Atlanta Falcons. I would prefer watching that game over the Washington Commanders and the Chicago Bears, but I mean, we'll see what happens. I think I'm going to start off talking about the Buffalo Bills and the Atlanta Falcons since that's the first game. I'll go ahead and make my pick and then let you start with the Commanders and Bears. But I think the interesting thing with this game is two things that are interesting. This Atlanta Falcons team hasn't necessarily lived up to quite to the expectations I have of them. Now, that being said, I had them just missing the playoffs this season, hovering right around 500, just missing the playoffs. I think they're a team that should be in that hunt in the NFC, but they're definitely a step behind the Buccaneers in their own division right now. They're that number two team in the pretty weak NFC South. And again, I think that they've had moments where last year when Michael Penix, when he was the starter, and got a couple weeks at the end of the season starting games, they put up a really good performance against the Washington Commanders, who are also playing on Monday night. That was a dogfight between the two rookie quarterbacks in Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix. What a game that was that came right down to the wire, and ultimately the Commanders ended up winning that. I've been disappointed with the Falcons' offense so far this year. Bijan's Bijan. Bijan Robinson, phenomenal, absolute stud, generational running back, and he's going to be that for many more years here in this league. But aside from him, I still don't quite see the offensive firepower that I'd like to see from the Atlanta Falcons. Penix hasn't played quite as well this year as I think he can play. Um, I still think there's potential there, at least from my draft evaluations and his fit in that system. I do feel like he could and should still be the long-term starter for the Atlanta Falcons. But this is going to be a tough task up against the Buffalo Bills, a Buffalo Bills team who are very much so in a position like the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday night, where they just experienced a loss. It was a close loss to a division rival, the New England Patriots, who are proving that they might be a legitimate team this year and could be competing for a wild card spot. So the Buffalo Bills, they get their first loss of the season. They've been one of the most dominant teams in the NFL, really probably the most dominant team in the AFC. If you're the Falcons, sure, you've had the bye week and the Buffalo Bills didn't, but I think the odds are stacked against you. I think if Buffalo won that game against the New England Patriots and they won handily and maybe mentally they switched off a little bit, maybe the bye week actually helps you. But I think you're now going up against a team that's hungry to get back on the winning track after just losing a close one, a game-winning field goal. So, um, yeah, give me the Buffalo Bills here, 38 to 23. And I'd like to see the Atlanta Falcons play well. I'd like to see it look like a good ball game. I think it'll be nice to see them in prime time because I want to get a better look at the Falcons because we haven't really seen them in prime time, yet this season. But I just think the Buffalo Bills are way ahead of the Falcons right now.
So I'm going to start with my displeasure of two Monday Night Football games. I enjoyed one because it's a standalone and it makes it special. There's a real old saying, but it's true. It's been true my entire life every time I've experienced it. Sometimes too much of a good thing could be bad. And with Monday Night Football, it is. It almost feels like you're forced in the second game, and we'll talk about the second game in a second. But if it was just this game, I'd be all for it. Buffalo, Atlanta, pretty good game. Now, I do agree with you. I think Atlanta's been a little disappointing so far this season.
Mhm.
Still trying to find their rhythm. You went from a run and gun with Kirk Cousins. All of a sudden, you started playing the rookie with 5 games left last year. Now you got the new coach. You got a lot of new things going on in Atlanta, and that's completely understood. It's going to take them a little while. I like I might have said week one of our show, or maybe I told you in private, but I don't think Atlanta's going to be very good this year. I think next year's going to kind of when you see them begin to really kind of blossom and maybe overtake Tampa Bay for that division. This year, I still don't expect much out of them. My pick should be obvious after saying that, right? I'm going to take Buffalo. So there's my pick, Buffalo. But I do want to say something about the Buffalo Bills, because Josh Allen gets so much attention as well. He should. He's a good ball player, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. No one's going to say no to that. But Buffalo has a couple players that a lot of times go unnoticed and they shouldn't. First of which is their leading receiver. How many of you out there watching this would even know this? Their leading receiver this year is their tight end yet again, Dalton Kincaid. When this guy stays healthy, he's very good. 287 yards so far, 20 catches, 3 touchdowns. Their other tight end, also very good, Dawson Knox. He just can't seem to stay healthy. Only 6 catches this year. Let's see what he can do the rest of the way. But when you play that double tight end set with Kincaid and Knox, you have two weapons there. One of them's probably going to be open every single time. On top of that, another guy that we absolutely love, we've talked about several times on the show, is their running back, James Cook. James
Mhm.
Cook is really good, and he goes unnoticed, right? He's one of those guys that could actually help out your fantasy football team before you even realize it. Draft him. He's really good. He goes under the radar. This guy, through 5 games, already has 450 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's just playing really, really well right now, right? Feed him the ball, take a little bit of the pressure off Josh Allen, and you should be fine. Josh Allen, the only thing he's going to do sometimes wrong, he might make an errant pass or he might fumble the ball, but pretty much he's going to give you a chance to win every single time out.
Mhm.
Buffalo, you never know what the weather's going to be like. So many question marks there. But James Cook is that guy who's reliable enough. He is your running back number one. There's no question anymore. He is the guy to handle the rock out of the backfield, give him the ball, let him run. So for me, this game, pretty easy pick going with Buffalo. And the last thing I'll say, kind of close the chapter of last week. Who would have thought we'd see a week where Buffalo lost, Philadelphia lost, Kansas City lost, all in the same weekend?
Yeah, and it's interesting about the receiving core with the Buffalo Bills is they really don't have a true star receiver. It's just pretty even across the board. There's a ton of different targets for Josh Allen, and he does a good job at spreading the rock around the field. Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, uh, Josh Palmer, who had some good years in Los Angeles, is there. Um, you've Curtis Samuel, who lines up in the backfield sometimes, right? And
Yep.
he's kind of a jet sweep guy, but he can also be out there as a receiver. And Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox is more of your blocking tight end, but you have him. So you have so many receiving weapons across the board, and he does do a good job spreading that football around the field. But really the biggest thing for the Buffalo Bills is what they have in the backfield. The legs of Josh Allen, and for the last couple years, we've known that James Cook is running back number one. There wasn't a question last year. There definitely wasn't a question this year. When that question happened was really his rookie season, but I mean he proved how explosive he is as a runner, as a pass catcher out of the backfield. I mean, don't get me wrong, his brother Dalvin Cook was very good,
He
but
was.
I think Dalvin Cook probably, when he had his run as a starter
Yeah.
in the league, probably got more hype and more
Oh,
attention.
agreed.
But I think James Cook is the better of the two. I think he's so explosive, and I just think for some reason he somewhat slides under the radar. And I think why he slides under the radar is because he's on a team with Josh Allen, who is
Yeah.
so good,
Yep.
and we have this running back boom right now where Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, names like that draw so much attention that James Cook slides down that list just a little bit. Fantasy wise, he's great. Everybody knows he's great fantasy wise. But if we're just talking strictly running backs across the league and we're talking, who's the best, he gets left out of that conversation a lot. Where I think he's one of the biggest home run hitters, most explosive running backs in the league. And just because he's lined up with Josh Allen, again, it goes a little unnoticed, but so good in that backfield.
I'm gonna capitalize on that point for a second because I thought the same thing, right? So James Cook has to share the spotlight with Josh Allen. That's obvious. To add to your point though about Dalvin Cook in Minnesota, look at how good Justin Jefferson is right now, right?
Mhm.
So to me, Justin Jefferson is one of the top five receivers in football. Love the guy. Thing is phenomenal. He's caught the ball from nobodies the last 2, 3 seasons. And look what he's done with it. Sam Darnold, he made a superstar, right? This year, I mean, he's caught the ball from two different quarterbacks. So look what he's done. And it's
Yeah.
kind of the same situation where it's like you don't hear a ton about Justin Jefferson, but you should. And you mentioned Minnesota with Dalvin Cook, kind of the first thing that popped in my head, right? So interesting enough with that. I think it speaks volumes. I think you hit a home run with your comment. I just want to throw in that Justin Jefferson comment because again, this is the kind of guy where it's like he's doing it with everybody. Where when you look at a guy like Tyreek Hill, he had such a flash there for a little bit and has done nothing since. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like Justin Jefferson, maybe like a James Cook, is the kind of guy you could put on maybe 10 to 15 teams in the NFL and he's still going to tear it up. Delvin Cook couldn't do that. Delvin Cook went to the Jets, barely touched the ball. So just another example for you.
Yeah, I think one thing too is we can pivot to the Washington Commanders and Chicago Bears.
Sure.
It's interesting as we're talking offensive weapons. Um, the Washington Commanders offense was phenomenal last season in the rookie year with Jaden Daniels. Of course, Terry McLaurin was just absolutely lighting it up. And then the thing is, then there are the contract issues in the offseason with Terry McLaurin's wanting to get paid. The Washington Commanders drug their feet. They took so long. So, I mean, he missed a ton of time, even going into training camp, which I definitely, even though they had a season last year, that hurts your chemistry with your quarterback. And then he's had injuries. So we've gone pretty much the first 5 going on 6 weeks of the season where there's really been low production to Terry McLaurin has been out and not playing, and it's been one of those things where that hurts your offense. So you're relying on Deebo Samuel, who came in from San Francisco, to really carry a huge load for the Washington Commanders, especially because look at what happened in your backfield at running back. For some reason, you decided to trade Brian Robinson to the San Francisco 49ers. Boy, did that come back and bite you bad after Austin Eckler went down and you lost him for the season. So again, I'm not very impressed with the trajectory of where this Washington offense is going compared to where it should have been going headed into this season before that trade happened for Brian Robinson to send him to San Francisco before Terry McLaurin hasn't really produced and has been out with injury as well. I'll be interested to see when this offense really kind of gets back into full swing again if they do this season. And
They
then they've
will.
got a defense where they have a lot of what's the best way to put this? They have a lot of veteran experience. They've pretty much sold out, I think,
Yeah,
on defense for, hey, we have a couple year window here to make a run at a Super
agree.
Bowl.
Yep.
So we've got Bobby Wagner and a ton of these guys who are 35, 36, 37 years old who they're on their last legs, still very good players, experienced players. We're selling out hard to try to win a championship. Tough thing is you're in division with the Eagles. There's a couple other really good contenders right now in the NFC. The Green Bay Packers, the Detroit Lions are still up there. Washington, could they get back in that mix? They probably can, Vince, but this Washington team, I would have coming into the year, I would have picked them against the Chargers last week, and they ended up winning against the Chargers. I would have picked them, but I went with the Chargers just because of how things were going trend-wise those first 4 weeks. And even though I was wrong, I still don't know what to fully make of the Commanders. Is this a team that could be 12-5? Or is this a team that's going to be 10-7? Now, they should be a playoff team both ways, but I think you understand what I'm saying is, are they going to be
Yeah.
a top
That's a
four
big two
team?
game difference. Yep.
Are they going to be a top four team in the NFC? Or are they more of a top seven just sneaking into the postseason? And that's a huge difference. Well, you're going up against a Bears team that you probably should beat. And speaking of weapons, total flip. DJ Moore pretty quiet this year. Roma Dunze has now become their number one. So hey, a lot's changing wide receiver wise for both of those of who's needing to be the star right now. But Vince, Commanders, do they win this game or do the Bears pull one off?
Bears got some weapons, and they really do. Crazy to think, right? Two stud receivers. Browns don't have one right now. Kind of funny. But the thing about it is, and you really talked a lot about Washington, and you hit every point, quite frankly. But the biggest thing, snake bit, injury bit, whatever you want to call it, that's been the problem so far for Washington, and the letdown of losing in the NFC Championship game last year. Nobody saw them go into the NFC Championship game last year. Nobody. Nobody. They did, and it was something like, wow, maybe Washington is this team that's going to sneak up on everybody. Now, this year, they've been playing kind of like the Washington team we thought we'd see last year, right? So
Yeah,
kind of hard to really make out. But I don't think Jaden Daniels last year, his season, I don't think it was a fluke. I think it's for real, right?
right.
So again, there were some off-season distractions. There's been injuries. There's just been a lot going on for them. And the funny thing about this game, though, is if you look back to last season, right around the same time, the Bears, I'm sorry, not around the same time. It was more so midseason. I apologize for misspeaking. But when these two teams played each other last year, I'm positive the Bears were like either 5-5 or 5-4. They were right there, right? And Washington was real close to that same record. And Bears had the game won. All they had to do was deflect one Hail Mary pass. They would have won that game, right? Washington, they make a Hail Mary touchdown, and the trajectories went two completely different ways. Washington took off, went all the way to the NFC Championship game. Bears, I don't know if they won another game all season. They might have won one more the rest of the season. They just completely were destroyed by that one play. So I would have to believe Chicago's been thinking about that one moment for almost a year now. They want that revenge. Kind of a cool game. Like I said, I don't really care for the double Monday Night Football game, but this was the number one pick versus the number two pick. We got it last year. We're getting it again this year with Williams versus Jaden Daniels. I will say two things on this. One, I do not believe this game comes down to a Hail Mary. I think it will be decided well beforehand, picking the Commanders to win pretty comfortably here by at least two touchdowns. I think this is going to be their breakout game, and they're going to remind everybody how talented they are. The one and final thing I will say is you are right. When you trade away your running back like you did, you put all your marbles and whatever, eggs in a basket, whatever analogy you want to use, and then Eckler gets hurt, that's not good. But I really do think Jaden Daniels is the kind of quarterback that makes players around him better. I love Drake May in that draft. I did. He was my favorite guy in that draft. I said he would have the best career. As of now, it kind of looks like I put my foot in my mouth, but he's playing pretty damn good too. But Jaden Daniels right now, still to me, when you look at him, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, I still feel like Daniels has the highest upside. This is the first injury he's had to deal with. But when he's healthy, and this is coming from the biggest Broncos fan you're going to meet, when he's healthy, I still feel he's head and shoulders above Bo Nix in that draft from what we've seen. I do not think Caleb Williams is a good quarterback. He's blessed with all kinds of weapons around him. My official pick, obviously, by now is Washington.
Yeah, I have the Washington Commanders in this game as well. I don't know if it's going to be a blowout, but I still think that the Commanders are going to win it convincingly enough. I have it as 30-20. So two possession ball game. But I think Washington they do win this game. And here's where Washington they probably need to think about some things a little bit long term, where if they win this game and after now winning two in a row, and maybe if they look like it's in a little more convincing fashion again, you got Jaden Daniels back after he missed a few weeks there where Marcus Mariota had to fill in. You have to start to think again about what's going to be best for us long term to potentially as a contender, because I mentioned that window for their defense to contend for the Super Bowl, try to make a run at a Super Bowl this year. Not that they completely ignore that if they lose to the Bears this week, but I think just a win against the Bears in prime time is going to signify, okay, we need to think about we're a legitimate team, we're right in the mix, we're right in the hunt. What can we do to get better? If there's any team, in my opinion, that needs to call up the Saints for Alvin Kamara or
Oh,
a veteran running back like that who is on a bad team that's not going anywhere, a team that's definitely going into rebuild mode. I think that Alvin Kamara would make a ton of sense to be the lead running back for the Washington Commanders if they want to take a serious run at a Super Bowl. So I think that's probably the next step for them is just to make sure they add a weapon on offense in that backfield to strengthen Jaden Daniels, hopefully when Terry McLaurin's back and playing and healthy and ready and full go, and Deebo Samuel. I just think an explosive running back after losing Brian Robinson to go to the 49ers via that trade, losing Eckler for the year. I think Alvin Kamara would even he'd not only fill the missing piece, right? But I think he would take that backfield up a level that they didn't have with those two guys I mentioned before.
it's funny. As you said that, I took a little look over at my helmets and just a real quick peek over at the helmets. Look at what Javonte Williams has done for the Cowboys this year,
Mm.
right? Gave them that spark. You talk about Kamara, kind of the same type of thing. I, Listen, I like Nick Chubb as much as the next guy, but I really think the Houston Texans should have made a play for Alvin Kamara or Javonte Williams for that matter. But Houston Texans kind of in the same boat right now, I feel personally, with the Washington Redskins, where they are like one or two offensive threats still away from being a serious Super Bowl contender. They go out and get Kamara. Who knows what they could pull off? And Lord knows, Houston could talk other franchises into some pretty stupid trades. So you never know what they're going to pull off. And that's an inside joke for all you Browns fans. If you didn't get it, I apologize. But come on. So no, I mean, Why not, right? Good point, though.
Washington Redskins reference. Here we go
Ah,
again. Did it again.
I was
Man,
doing so good. I was on about a 5 week streak of not saying that.
it
I just want to know
was
when did they play the San Diego Chargers? That's all I ask.
it was so good. You made it till week 6, Vince. So we're on the same page with both of those Monday Night Football games. I'm going to start off here on our upset pick, and I'm going to keep this one really short and
Oh,
sweet. And I will say that I went up and down the list this week, and I usually am not at a loss for finding an upset pick. I typically have anywhere from 3 to 6 upset picks a week, I feel like. This week, I just struggled to find it. Um, so the one that I'm not convinced by this at all, Vince. Don't get me wrong. But the one that I'm like, this has the best chance of being an upset is the Arizona Cardinals against the Indianapolis Colts. I think that's the one that probably has the best chance of being an upset. Um, Running back wise, Amari DiMercado blew that game for the Arizona Cardinals with his touchdown run that he dropped the ball, you know, 1 yard
yeah.
out. I don't know if anybody out there is watching that Chad Powers show on Hulu. You know, using the inspiration of the whole Eli Manning being Chad Powers going to that, Penn State camp for the walk-ons or in their tryouts, and it's been honestly pretty funny in the sense of we had in that show, the first episode, again, it's basically just that football gets dropped at the 1 yard line in a national championship, gets run back for a touchdown. That's how it ends at kind of a devastating situation. It's all because of celebrating dropping that football too early before crossing the goal line. We've seen it in the NFL happen way too many times. And that's really the main thing that cost the Arizona Cardinals against the Tennessee Titans. Another one of the worst teams in the NFL. That Cardinals team should not have lost that game, but a whole momentum shift and swing started to happen after that moment, and the Cardinals, they blew it. So that's why I'm not confident in this game. I think going into this weeks ago, I would have said, I really think this Arizona Cardinals team, if they're the underdogs here, I'm confident that they can win this game. Again, the Colts, they've been better than I've expected. Now, do I believe they're a long-term contender? Absolutely not. I'm still holding my ground firm on that this is not a contending Colts team. However, I really think that there's a good chance the Colts win this game, but I'm taking the Cardinals 28-21. Maybe they'll get a little bit of a spark, a little bit of redemption from last week, and this is one of the opportunities where the Colts, you finally find that chink in their armor.
Colts are like the Vikings last year. They're going to get a fat record off of being cupcakes to start the season.
Yeah.
It's crazy how this is lining up for them. That's exactly what I see happening. And I disagree with you. Ironically, I actually think there's quite a few upset contenders this week. Now, to be 100% transparent, I didn't pick a bunch. I only picked two, and I'm going to talk about them in a second. And both of those are huge reaches. But um, first things first, I'm taking the Colts. I just kind of feel like Arizona, they don't have a running game, and what little running game they had last week, like you pretty much addressed what happened. I mean, how demoralizing is that going to be for the kid? We'll see what happens. The Colts, they're good right now. Is it long term? Is it lasting? I'm like you. I'm still not sold, but they're about to be if they win 5-1. I mean, who in the right mind saw that coming? Somewhere, somebody's winning a lot of money on their over under. Just crazy how that worked out. I'm going to save us some time because I know we need to talk about the Browns. So before we do, though, here are games in which I didn't pick the underdog, but I still believe it's a very possibility that they could win, and I'll rattle them off quickly. Dallas is the favorite. I picked them to beat Carolina. Don't feel confident about that at all. Something's going on in Carolina. They're getting better. It took everything I had not to pick them this week after I was sure I did last week, but I think they might beat the Cowboys. I don't think that's going to be a big upset if that one happens. As I scroll down here real quick, San Francisco. at Tampa Bay. They're an underdog. They could win. I picked Tampa Bay. But again, San Francisco is doing crazy stuff this year that none of us saw coming. So I would not be shocked if they win as well. But my official pick there is Tampa Bay. So who did I pick then? So crazy enough, I picked two upsets. And I mean, I think these would both be sizable, but at the same time, my theory is kind of flip flop. And you're going to think, like, what is he doing? Right. So, first of all, you're going to think, what is he talking about? So, I'll try to do this with a straight face. The Los Angeles Rams are 3-2, right? I like the Rams. I actually think they're pretty damn good. But I don't see a universe where the Ravens start the season 1-5. So, based on nothing more than record, I'm taking the Ravens 1-4, and I'm going to give you a philosophy, which I'm about to immediately switch in a second. And you're going to be like, what the hell is he talking about? So let me just get it out of my mouth first. They're going to go cross country and play a 1 o'clock game against a team that should have been playing in the Super Bowl this year, the Baltimore Ravens. So for that, I'm taking the Ravens for no other reason than I cannot see them starting the season 1-5. The fact that they're a 7 point underdog at home to me is absolutely wild. I don't really bet on sports, but I am tempted to throw some money on that sucker, at least with the spread. Now, the other upset pick that no one saw coming in a million years, I'm taking the Seattle Seahawks to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll make this quick. Seattle has a ton of talent on their team. We talked about it a few weeks ago when they played Arizona, and I kicked myself for not picking them that week. We both picked Arizona. We both lost. I think our Thursday night record this year is atrocious. I'm going to go back and look, but we have not done well on Thursday nights. Now, Seattle versus Jacksonville in this situation, I think they're equally talented. I really, truly do. Now, Trevor Lawrence is definitely better than Sam Darnold, but there's other areas where I feel Seattle's better. I feel they have better receivers. I feel they have a better starting running back. I feel they have a better defense. But at the same time, now I'm asking Seattle to go cross country and play a 1 o'clock game, and I'm picking them to win while I just picked against the Rams going cross country to lose a 1 o'clock game. So, weird feeling on both of these after the crazy week we had last week, but I'm locking in two upsets, at least two. There might be more, but the Los Angeles Rams will lose to Baltimore, and flip flopping it, Seattle will go cross country and win against Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville's going to get a wake up call. They're 4-1. They're probably riding unbelievably high right now, and I just think I don't see a universe where Jacksonville starts 5-1, and in that same universe, I don't see the Baltimore Ravens starting 1-5.
Well, I took the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's hard to bet against them right now based off of how they're playing. So, but I have to have this as a high scoring ball game, 37 to 33. I just feel like this is one shaping up to be high scoring, be about the offenses. So I think that's a good one. I'm surprised you're taking the Seattle Seahawks, but I think that if there's any game that has potential, I would say if the ones I was probably deciding between was probably the three that we talked about: the Cardinals, the Colts, the Rams, the Ravens, the Jaguars, the Seahawks. I think those are the most likely ones for an upset. But like I said, I went with the favorite. I went with the Jags in that. I went with the Rams as well. I think that Rams team is a good football team. Coming into the year, the Baltimore Ravens should be the better football team. And talent-wise across the board, they should be a team potentially competing for a Super Bowl. However, what's happening right now with their defense and the injuries that they're having, and they're just completely decimated defensively, and Lamar didn't play the last game, and Cooper Rush I think is a good quarterback, but he's a totally different dynamic. I like when your backup can run the same type of offense as your starter. Well, they don't have anybody who can emulate Lamar Jackson. Cooper Rush definitely doesn't have that type of running ability, so he takes away a whole another dimension that they have in that backfield. Because you know that if he's dropping back, he's just going to pass it. He's not going to be scrambling and picking up a bunch of yards. So I think the way the Ravens are trending, should they bounce back at some point, should they contend? Yeah, but I mean, if they get so far into the hole, if you're the Ravens and you get so far into the hole that it's like, hey, realistically, we might not even have a shot. And I know it's not in the nature of the players to just kind of give up, but When did the Ravens ever get a top 10 pick in the NFL draft? They just don't. And if they continue to head in that direction, and with how good of a roster they have, and knowing that a good chunk of that roster be returning next year, is this your opportunity to see if you can get a top 10 pick and snag a Caleb Downs or some generational talent that you can just add to that roster and make you even that much better next year? I don't necessarily think that they're going to tank, but it would be just the luck of the Baltimore Ravens, to the despair of the rest of the AFC North, that the Ravens had one down year when they shouldn't have had that down year, and then they capitalize on it with some incredible defensive talent that's there for the next decade, for example. And then here we go, we're about to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns, and they both have to deal with that nightmare for a long time. So, like I said, I took the Rams, but I don't want to take the Rams in a sense because I think the Ravens have to bounce back at some point, but I got to see it to believe it at this point now.
Here's what's crazy: the Ravens picked high. This guy's name was Ray Lewis. I don't know if you heard of him, and that
Yeah.
might have been, ironically, that should have been a Cleveland Brown, right? That was the year they moved. But I'd really have to sit back and look at it and look at all the drafts. You're right. You could probably count on one hand in 30 years, and it's been exactly 30 years, how many times the Ravens have picked in the top 10. I can't even think of it off the top of my head. Maybe two or three. Just crazy to think they've had that kind of consistency, right? I know '07 they stunk, but outside of that, they've always been really good. I'll say this before we get to the Browns and Steelers. Here's what's crazy about the NFL schedule. Because I mentioned it a couple times, and I think it just stands out. Look at all these teams from the West Coast traveling almost cross country, if not at least to the deep parts of the Midwest to play. You have the Rams at Baltimore. You have Seattle at Jacksonville. You have the Chargers at the Dolphins. You have the Cardinals at the Colts. And then you have going the other way across the country. You have San Francisco at Tampa Bay. No, what the heck am I saying? That's the same way. San Francisco at Tampa Bay, and I'm keeping looking here. That's it. But that's at least five or six West Coast teams you have going to play an East Coast team. And really, the only difference is the Tampa Bay game's at 4 o'clock. So just kind of interesting to me how they're doing that.
For
That's all.
sure. Well, final game of this week to talk about the Cleveland Browns, and they went across the pond, went to London, went up against the Minnesota Vikings,
Unbelievable.
made everybody in England believe that they might actually be a somewhat good football team, and then in typical Cleveland Browns fashion, they ripped their hearts out right at the end, is blowing that what should have been a win, and losing to Carson Wentz and the Minnesota Vikings. Now, what has transpired since they've returned to the States? Joe Flacco is now a member of the Cincinnati Bengals and is scheduled to make his start with the Cincinnati Bengals against the Green Bay Packers. So, interesting development there. I mean,
That's
we
wild.
we, we kind of knew that Joe Flacco right around this time, we had talked about it for a while, that right around this time, and it's 2 weeks earlier than I expected, that he'd get benched and they go to Dylan Gabriel. It happened week 5 when had week 7 circled. But I didn't necessarily think that, as much as I did think that the Browns viewed him as expendable because they're like, he has no future with us, right? He's a 40-year-old quarterback. We're just playing him to get through the tough part of the schedule, and we think he gives us a chance to win games. And if we're not winning games, we're gonna, you know, blow it up in that sense and see what we have with the young guys. I thought they'd at least keep him around, but hey, they turned Joe Flacco and a sixth round pick into a fifth round pick. So hey, if the Bengals are willing to flip that and you get to move up around, probably worth it to get the value off of it. So now it's just going to be a matter of, is Dylan Gabriel the guy? He'll get some more opportunities, and if he doesn't end up performing, and I thought he looked pretty good in general this past week, but if he's not the guy, then Shador Sanders, he'll get his opportunities. So wouldn't be surprised if we maybe see both at some point, but yeah, so some interesting developments after that loss. But Vince, I'll let you make your pick. Talk about your thoughts from this last game and then going into this week against the Steelers.
I feel like if I talk about the Browns, I'm going to say the exact same thing I've said for 5 straight weeks. Just being honest about this, man. No passing game, no receivers. You can't score over 17 points. They have not scored over 17 points since probably midway through last year. I think it was the Broncos game when Jameis Winston, and Bo Nix had a phenomenal night. Outside of that, they just can't score. They can't run the ball. They can't seem to do anything. Now, Judkins is good. Okay, the guy just went for over 100 yards, but outside of him, they got nothing else going on. We talked about Jerome Ford with the little screen passes. That could work in chunks, but then they go away from it. The play calling killed them last week. You had a chance to win a game, be what would have been 2-3, and right there in the flipping division when you think about what the issues Cincinnati's having, the issues Baltimore is having. Pittsburgh's not for real. They'll win this week, and they're my official pick, so I'm taking the Steelers. But man, oh man, if there was ever a year where the Browns could have snuck out a 2-3 record, and you got games coming up against the Dolphins, Pittsburgh. I mean, you had chances. That was a deadly loss, man. A deadly loss. If they could have got that, the whole perspective of everything would have been changed. Only thing I'm going to say is this: why not keep Flacco around as a mentor? Unless he didn't want to do it. We don't know the details. Who really truly knows? But if you got that guy around, he might be able to help the kid out. Maybe he wasn't. I don't know. I wasn't there. But that situation aside, it angers me because here we are again, one step close to Sanders. And if you don't think Sanders is starting this season, wake up. It's only a matter of time. I hope Dylan Gabriel gets better every week. Last week was not his fault. Protected the ball, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Right.
Yeah, he didn't throw down the field. Who is he going to throw it to? No one's open. We have no flipping receivers. Jerry Jeudy is bad. There's no way that guy should have ever
Yeah.
been a number one. It's beyond frustrating. That's why I don't want to talk about him. Pittsburgh, as we've said, this is the year where the records don't make sense. They're about to be 4-1 or whatever the heck it is. I think 4-1. They're coming off a bye. They're going to be well rested. They're going to be ready to roll. Last time the Browns won in regular season was 0-3 on Sunday Night Football. I feel like I say that every stinking year. It's just been so long. Dylan Gabriel deserved better for his first outing last week. He deserved better, and that's just it angers me the most. Play calling killed them, and I realize I'm repeating myself, but on both sides of the ball, you played aggressive defense all game long. You created 2 turnovers. You won the turnover battle for once. You should have won the game. Heartbreaking, frustrating loss. They'll lose again, and it's just now the clock starts on Stefanski going all the way back to the original Brown, or not the original Browns, but when the Browns first came back. I don't have the number in front of me, but I know it's at least 4 or 5. Four, at least 4, if not 5 Cleveland Browns head coaches lost to Pittsburgh and then were fired. Go back and look. It has happened time and time and time again. Is it going to happen this week? I don't think so. I think Haslam's going to stick it out with Stefanski the entire season, but so frustrating. At this point, what would shock you anymore?
Yeah, I think the part that's really frustrating about it is that um, I expected the Cleveland Browns to go like 1-5 to start the year. Um, so this isn't necessarily shocking in that sense, but they've performed better than I expected them to perform. The young
Easily 3-2.
the young talent, and we talked about it before. I don't need to run through the list of all the young talent that's played well. I don't really need to run through the whole list about the defense playing better than we expected. Um, but I think the frustrating part about that loss to the Minnesota Vikings is that the Cleveland Browns came out from the start, looked like the better football team, played like the better football team, should have won that game. They had control all the way until late into the fourth quarter when that happened with less than a minute left. You go behind. And and the thing is, for the people who are saying the defense didn't get a stop when they needed to at the end, that's not on the defense. The defense played well all game. I'm not going to blame them for one drive at the end. And, Carson Wentz throwing a really nice pass where, again, Denzel Ward, I think, was trying to bait him a little bit underneath, hoping that he'd short arm it, maybe throw the pick. Regardless, I don't blame the defense there because they played well all game. You have to put your defense in positions to succeed. Is- There, a defense is just not ever gonna give up points, right? There's gonna be points given up throughout games. But the way the Browns are playing, realistically, if you put 20 points on the board, you're going to win a ball game. And they're
Yep.
not putting 20 points on the board at this point. And why are they not putting 20 points on the board? The biggest thing in my opinion is that it is frustrating about the offensive tackle situation. But the interior of your offensive line, they're getting some push. They're playing well when it comes to running the football. Your tight ends, I think David Njoku finally woke up this past week, and Harold Fannin Jr.'s look good. So your tight ends have looked good. Running back looks great with Quinshon Judkins right now. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are like, Jerome Ford stinks. Okay, Jerome Ford isn't necessarily your, um, he can't be your feature back. He just does not have that in him. He did a good job filling in for Nick Chubb the other year when he was out, but he's not a true feature back. He struggles finding holes up the middle running that football. But where he succeeds is as a receiving back because he actually shows some physicality and some vision on the outside. With he catches a quick check down or a screen, he can make something happen. And I'd like to see them get Dylan Sampson a little bit more involved as well. But what's going on right now with them is not only do you just have a weak wide receiver room who isn't stretching the field and they're not getting down the field vertically, so Dylan Gabriel did a good job protecting that football and taking his check downs and really in general didn't put the ball in harm's way. I liked what I saw from Dylan Gabriel. I thought he played a really nice ball game. But this one's on Kevin Stefanski. If there's
Yep.
anybody who didn't put their defense in a good position, it's Kevin Stefanski because of how he's calling the offense. Here's where I'm torn by Kevin Stefanski. I think he's the best coach that the Cleveland Browns have had in my lifetime in the sense of like what we've seen a coach get out of this team and how they performed. So I think Kevin Stefanski's the best that they've had. However, there are moments where his calm, cool demeanor is good. There are a lot of moments where I would love to see him actually get fired up and show some human personality that he's not a robot. And that's where we're seeing Liam Cohen's energy in Jacksonville, I think spark some energy for them. There just needs to be a fire lit under this team at times. And that's where I just don't know if Kevin Stefanski's that guy to light that fire and to be able to flip that switch and actually give them some energy, give them actually yell at the players, right? And the players actually believe it and actually respect it. Because I just don't see that. I think he's always just so level-headed and so calm, cool, and collected. I want to see that spark, but I also want to see a coach that goes out there and isn't playing afraid to lose, right? That you're out there with the lead and you're trying to win. For some reason, Kevin Stefanski and I like when the Browns are physical, aggressive, running the football. But man, when you're up, everybody knows that he is just going to try to run that football and just try to drain the clock, and I think there's a lot of pros to that, but you have to be very selective and smart in how you manage that because the Vikings they sold out hard against the run in the entire fourth quarter. They knew, okay, first and second down, it's run. Run up the middle, run up the middle, run up the middle. So Quinshon Judkins had a great game until he went quiet at the end, and it's because the Vikings sold out hard. They knew the run was coming. All you needed was, hey, let's on first down surprise them and let's go play action, right? Fake the handoff and let Dylan Gabriel throw one to Harold Fannin Jr. or David Njoku. We just need a couple passes sprinkled in there on first and second down to maybe pick up a first down potentially and then, kill a little bit more clock. But instead it was so predictable. First, second down runs up the middle, stuffed, and then you got a third and long, and then there's no receivers who can stretch the field, and at least Dylan Gabriel didn't turn it over, right? and give the Vikings great field position. He was careful with the football at least and didn't turn it over. But long story short, it's because of Kevin Stefanski's play calling that he's put the defense in a bad position. They ultimately lost. This game's on his head, and Vince, this is where I'm having my internal dilemma, is because do I like the thought of necessarily like I knew this year was going to be bad record wise. If I was expecting this Browns team to potentially make a run at the playoffs, to potentially be a contender, um, I think it'd be easy to jump on the fire Kevin Stefanski bandwagon because I expected this year to be a rough year record wise and a year to really see what the rookie quarterbacks have down the stretch. Um, it's hard to say fire him right now because I don't necessarily know like what that's going to look like next year. Are we going to bring in a coach that's going to actually make this team better, or are we hitting the reset button on the head coach and it's actually going to come back to bite us as we've seen many times before? So that's the tough part for me. I do think though that it wouldn't maybe be bad to have that spark. I don't think it'd be bad to maybe have a head coach who not only just has that fire, but he has a little bit more of a passing game demeanor where, um, they still want to emphasize running that football with Quinshon Judkins, but we want to, for Dylan Gabriel or whoever's the quarterback, open up that passing attack a little bit more out of shotgun as well. But we need some better receivers to actually do that. It's tough. Um, I think I'm kind of on the fence. I would understand if they get rid of Kevin Stefanski. I would understand if they keep him at the moment. So I think I'm kind of just sitting back, watching, waiting to see what happens. And I don't think we're going to know whether it's the right decision or not until we hit next season, truthfully.
I mean, he's done some really good things with some staffs that might have not been the best around him, but at the same time, he had a lot of help. And that's the thing, Baker Mayfield in the one year where we did make the Browns made the playoffs, he was really good, right? But anytime there had to be challenges in his coaching career, whether it was sitting Baker down and going with I think Case Keenum, in 2021 when Baker was hurt, just didn't do it. Just little things, weird things. But again, I think what's going to spell the end for Stefanski, whether it's this year or next, is just this entire Deshaun Watson trade. And it's not even his fault, right? And that's the biggest problem at all. You've seen this guy have to work with so many different quarterbacks. You had a guy who took you to the playoffs, you traded him away. You and I were both all for that, and still hindsight being 2020, clearly nobody could predict it was going to work out as bad as it has for the Browns. But really, how much of that can you literally blame on Stefanski? The one thing that he has not done very well at all is the play calling. I think the play calling's been terrible. One of those things, when it doesn't work out, let someone else do it. Bring in a trained professional to do that and just focus on being a head coach. Maybe your clock management skills will get better. It just seems to me like it's the same song and dance. And it also seems to me like we see so many times in the NFL where you see a head coach do better in his second stint, with the second team. So clearly, I'm tired of even talking about it, right? So I just feel like Stefanski is one team away from maybe being one of the better coaches in the NFL. He was good for the Browns when he got here. I'd hate to see him go. I like him, but you just can't forgive what happened last weekend. That loss is on him. That Bengals loss is just he made some terrible coaching mistakes that game that really went unnoticed because there was so much focus on the missed field goals, but just some silly play calling there as well. So I'll end it with this. Should have, could have, would have, but there's no. I mean, man, if the Browns were 3-2 right now going into this game, what a different feel this entire season would have. Should have won the Bengals game. Should have won the game against the Vikings. Should have does not keep your job. It does not get you paid.
Yeah, I think, and obviously I'm taking the Steelers here in a close ball game. I think it's going to be low scoring, like 17-16. The Browns could honestly maybe even be in the hunt to potentially win this game as well, but I think they're ultimately going to lose. Again, I just hope Dylan Gabriel plays well. I hope the rookies play well and have a good showing, but um, I think the thing with Kevin Stefanski, Vince, is that that's potentially a guy that he might be a good head coach, but when he's a head coach that has to be the offensive coordinator and call the plays in a sense. I know he's not the offensive coordinator, but technically you get what I'm saying, where
Yeah.
he's wearing those two hats where he's the play caller. To me, I think Kevin Stefanski may be one of those guys where he's better just being the head coach on the sideline, just managing the team, working with both sides, talking to the guys, and kind of managing the game overall, and letting somebody else be the play caller. I know it didn't work with Ken Dorsey. Ken Dorsey wasn't the guy not long ago, but I think if there's a better offensive coordinator uh, who was actually calling the plays, maybe that would work out for them. So I don't disagree with Kevin Stefanski's like run heavy system. I just think it gets too conservative when they actually need to throw the football. So, um, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Kevin Stefanski might be the head coach after this week. He might not. I could see him even in a rough season making it all the way through the season and then they don't blow it up until after. So, but to think Mike Vrabel was on your staff, last year, and now Mike Vrabel then, got the head coaching job with the New England Patriots, and I know everybody will probably think hypothetically, wow, what if they just got rid of Kevin Stefanski and brought in Vrabel? I think obviously it wasn't going to be a move that the Browns were going to decide to make, but I think there's just a lot of what ifs at coach for them, and like I said, I think we'll just see what happens after this season, and we're not going to know until next year.
Vrabel didn't want to coach the Browns.
No,
He wanted to coach the New England Patriots. That was obvious. That last year was a joke. I don't even remember. It wasn't Antonio Pierce because he was with the Raiders for a hot second. Who was the head coach of the Patriots last year?
it was Gerard Mayo.
That's right. It was Rod Mayo. That's right. So yeah, that was a setup. I don't care what anybody says. I think Vrabel wanted a year off of having that kind of responsibility, or else he just would have went straight from Tennessee. I don't think anybody in their right mind, in a moment of truth, if they were to take truth serum, I think that was a PR move for a little bit there. Just saying. Just saying.
So Vince, there we
Would you
have it.
hold on? Would you want to be the guy who replaces Bill Belichick? Granted, Bill Belichick's last 2 years there were a joke, right? And his college career is about done. But that was the best possible thing that could have happened to Mike Vrabel. It really was
Yeah,
because
I
he didn't have to immediately follow him. He got some time off, and then, look at the situation. He didn't have to worry about Drake May's uh, rookie season. None of that nonsense. And look what he inherited. That's not a bad ball club.
yeah, I think you wouldn't want to replace Bill Belichick in New England, but you might want to replace Bill Belichick in North Carolina. Um,
Yeah.
UNC can't get worse than they are right now. Now it's going to take you a tiny little bit to get some transfers in, get and get your recruiting classes in, right? It might take you a year or two to rebound that organization, but yeah, I'll take filling in for his college program over the Patriots the year after.
Yeah,
So.
Belichick's not having any problems. I don't think he really cares anymore. He's living his best life. I'll leave it at that.
I don't know about best life, but
He's
hey,
making up for lost time. Anyways, we'll move on.
like a dog on a leash. Um, yeah, somebody is taking orders, and it is not the head coach in North Carolina. So for week 6 of the Climate Tech Inc. NFL Prediction Show, Cole McDaniel, Vince McKee, thanks for joining us as always. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And the final thing before we wrap up, Vince, high school football game of the week this week. What's that game here on YouTube?
Brunswick at Medina, a good old GCC rivalry. Yeah, man. And then tomorrow night, guys, check out our website. Well, sorry, Thursday night. Thursday night. There's quite a few games. I think we have like 5 or 6 games tomorrow night. I'll be out there covering a game myself. So a lot of action this weekend for sure. And if you like it on Facebook, we have it there as well. We have begun to do Facebook Live games. So, working on a possible system next year. Yeah, I mean, we're really cranking.
So if you love football, make sure to stay tuned in for high school football. And that does it for us. We'll be back with you here next week.